And we are live, I think. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Forever Football on Forever Sports for today's news show and a very interesting week. The second edition of our sort of midweek live football news shows, which are going to become quite a constant for the Forever Sports audience as we look to try and diversify our portfolio a little bit. And a very interesting week for Manchester United fans who, once again, sort of take center stage really when it comes to this new show, because there is so much exciting things happening for the channel, and I think that for the club rather, and I think that in the next couple of weeks it's going to sort of make or break the entire season, because a club in disarray, a club that is a shadow of its former self, a club that is rotten from the core to the outside, is on the edge of potentially a major breakthrough. And that breakthrough is a potential new takeover. And it's quite weird how sort of within and some people are sort of now raising their eyebrows at the timing, but on the back of a 4-0 defeat against Brentford, Manchester United have had a bit of a weird last couple of days, and it's culminating in lots of, first of all, lots of transfer rumors and a lot of new ownership rumors. And last night, it was quite funny actually. I was busy recording a podcast for a project that Forever Sports is helping out with, and in the hour that suddenly we were doing this, everything sort of fell apart. Or not even fell apart, but just so many things started to happen. And we started seeing massive transfer rumors, very strange transfer rumors. We were seeing bids being rejected for João Felix, bids being put in for Casemiro from Real Madrid. But the big news of the week is a potential new takeover. And it could be quite a historic year, I guess, for Premier League when you think that Chelsea are under new ownership and the Roman Abramovich era had officially come to an end about 2 months ago. And now we could, touch wood if you're a United fan, be seeing the end of the Glazers era with, I mean, there's been protests since they've taken over, but they really are starting to take quite a lot of momentum at the moment. And we've got a lot of protests planned. You've got, sort of a Manchester United supporters trust, which is really sort of putting a lot of pressure on, because on the back of the Super League, we saw clubs starting to bring the fans into to the table really, and very much give them a more direct voice in what goes on at the club on an operational side of things. And as a result, owners are putting a lot are being held to more sort of accountability, and they're being held accountable for the actions that they make, because they've given the fans a voice. And as a result, these sort of fans who are representatives have to represent the millions of people from around the world who, in some clubs, are very dissatisfied with what's going on, none more so than Manchester United. And, there's been talk about the Glazers potentially selling for a while now, but in the last sort of 24 hours, we've seen potentially almost concrete evidence that they are looking to sell. And the big news for Manchester United is that Sir Jim Ratcliffe, who is the UK's richest man and a lifelong Manchester United fan, has confirmed, or a spokesperson has confirmed, that if your club does go out for sale and does become available, that he is definitely a potential buyer. Now, it's not quite as simple as that, because the club is not, for example, 100% owned by the Glazers. They own the sort of the majority stake. They did list the company, so the club as a company, so there are lots of people who own shares and stuff like that. But the majority shareholders are the Glazers, who are the majority sort of and the main owners of the club. Now, there was quite a lot of rumors which was springing up yesterday, that the Glazers have already started negotiating with potential investors over the sale of minority stake in the club, which would obviously reduce their shareholding in the club. But the big news that Manchester United fans are very much sort of jumping on is when the Times spoke to a spokesperson of Jim Ratcliffe, and he said, if the club is for sale, Jim is definitely a potential buyer. If something like this was possible, we would be interested in talking with a view to a long-term ownership. This is not about the money that has been spent or not spent. Jim is looking at what can be done now, and knowing how important the club is to the city, it feels like the time is right for a reset. And I think the word reset is exactly what sort of is getting Manchester United fans buzzed, because for them it's a lot more than just a new ownership, they want to see change across the club. Old Trafford, at the stadium itself, they are quite literally painting over the cracks. I mean, it's a stadium that leaks. It's a training ground, which was state of the art 10, 15 years ago, but also needs upgrading. We're looking at the fact that the women's team training facilities also need a massive overhaul. And potentially a second ground for the stadium, for example, where youth matches and women's matches can be take place. At the moment, it takes place at the Rivoli Sports Complex, which is not actually owned by the club. So, a lot of pressure about putting in potential second, smaller stadium, maybe even a multi-use stadium, where the junior teams, the women's side can sort of be based. So there's a lot of change that need to happen at the club, which is why the word reset is the right word. Now, the question is, does new ownership solve all the problems? And it's not quite as simple as that, because the answer is no. Structurally, the club has not been functioning to its highest capacity for 10, 15 years now. And it's sad, because if you go back to sort of when I was sort of growing up watching the club, we were always the cutting edge. It was always, I mean, it's still the biggest stadium, but it was also the best stadium, in terms of stadium experience, in terms of infrastructure. When they upgraded Carrington, the training ground, it was like the state-of-the-art training ground where all other clubs were like, oh my goodness, we need a training ground like that. Since then, Liverpool have upgraded their training facilities. Manchester City have upgraded their training facilities. Tottenham Hotspur have world-class training facilities. And Leicester City were busy doing their training facilities. All the other clubs have caught up. And Manchester United haven't really sort of looked to improve. They've kind of been like, well, we put that in, it was fine. We don't need to do much. So there needs to be so much more than just a Manchester United men's 11 overhaul. And even the squad itself, we're talking about the longest time ever since the Premier League era that this club has gone without a trophy. And no Champions League football, for example, this season, which is a disaster for a club which has won the competition twice. And, now people talking about, can Manchester United make top 10? And that is the strange conversation ever, because I think it was like the lowest Alex Ferguson ever finished was like third. And that was over sort of 20 years. And now we're talking about top 10. We're not talking about even being in European football competitions, let alone Champions League contention, let alone contending for the actual league itself. And Manchester United should always be a team that is contending for the league. And we want to see more teams contending for the league. And I think it's more than just Manchester United, for example. You want to see, you want to see Chelsea, you want to see the top six all competing and all being genuine league contenders. You don't want to just be right. Well, it's Manchester City to lose, and nobody can really sort of catch up nor contend with them, which is the case at the moment. Liverpool to a very slow start, 2 draws, that's 2 points so far after 2 weeks. So it's only Arsenal who've really sort of raised the flag and gone out firing with Manchester City. Even Spurs, Chelsea both dropping points, but they did play against each other. So we sort of wait to see what happens. Now, the biggest problem is that we've kind of been here before as Manchester United fans, where we've seen potential takeovers, we've seen rumors of players looking to sell, and the idea of sort of PR spin has very much come into the Manchester United following climate, because it always seems to be when things are going really badly, when fans are protesting, when fans really want to put pressure on the ownership, we often will see a marquee signing. We'll see maybe a lot of money being spent on players to try and sort of say, but we are investing, we are putting money in to the squad. The issue in the past has been spent pretty poorly. You think that Paul Pogba's transfer never really lived up to expectations. Angel Di Maria was a disaster signing. Romelu Lukaku was a bit of a disaster signing. You go look at the high-profile signings you've made. Harry Maguire, very few of them have come off. And now, for example, it kind of feels exactly that situation, because in the last 24 hours, we've heard that Atletico Madrid have reportedly rejected a 150 million euro bid for João Felix from Manchester United. There is rumors that Manchester United had put in a bid for Casemiro, which is said to be a very big bid, looking at apparently 80 million euros, and apparently looking to double his wages to try and pry the Real Madrid CDM away from the European champions. Apparently, they finally made official contact with Sergej Milinkovic-Savic, for example. Apparently, he's going to cost around 42 to 50 million pounds. So they are suddenly incredibly big transfer rumors and sort of big names. We're not talking about them going after sort of backup players or players within the league. They're looking at, talks about Manchester United going and signing some big name players. And that's why a lot of some of the Manchester United fans are quite hesitant, because they're sitting there saying, but we've seen this. We've seen Manchester United not make Champions League, go and sign some big players. We'll make Champions League and then it kind of goes down. That's kind of a bit of a repeat cycle. And maybe pick up an FA Cup or a League Cup along the way. And everybody's like, well, it's kind of, we're building something, etc., etc. Now, Erik ten Hag's obviously already under quite a lot of pressure, having lost 2 from 2 against Brighton and Brentford. And he wants to make a lot of changes, and the general feeling is that he's not being backed up by the club. So, going and signing Casemiro, if he wants Casemiro, going and signing João Felix, it's stupid money and bad signings from a financial point of view, but they're statement signings. But the worry then becomes, are there players that Erik ten Hag actually wants? The big sort of name that's been linked to Manchester United throughout the transfer window has been Anthony from Ajax, player that worked on ten Hag, and is that somebody he would prefer to having than a João Felix? He'd be cheaper, a lot less of a big name signing, but could very much mean more what the manager wants. And I think that the problem is that, as I said on Tuesday during the live stream, the clubs continues not to strengthen in the key areas, which means that they're not signing a midfielder. They're still not looking. They still haven't signed a right back. There is a striker down. With Mason Greenwood will probably never play for the club again, and rightfully so. Ronaldo now potentially leaving. There's a massive question mark over who will lead the line. Who is going to be a main striker? Where are you getting 20 goals a season? Massive questions over the goalkeeper. We've loaned out Dean Henderson. A lot of Manchester United fans saying that he's better than De Gea and play with his feet, and he should be backed. But he's also had a lot of things to say about the club, and I wouldn't mind if Dean Henderson were to walk, but then we kind of still need to replace De Gea. So there's a lot of areas in the team which are an issue. Marcus Rashford's underperforming. Jadon Sancho hasn't quite come off yet. Bruno Fernandes, if we're being very honest, last season was always going to be a different from the previous season, but the last 6 months have been very ordinary. So it's very few areas in the team. In fact, I don't think there's a single area in the team where you look and you think there's no issue there. Maybe you're sort of attacking midfield, sort of more progressive midfield with signing Eriksen, with having Bruno Fernandes. You're thinking that you've got 2 players there who can operate in that space, who are in the world-class category. But that's kind of it, isn't it? And that's why you look at Manchester City's squad, and you've got Jack Grealish up front, you've got Erling Haaland up front, you've got, even with signing Sterling, there's Bernardo Silva, there's Mahrez. There are so many players you can step in at any time. Jacques Cancelo has revolutionized that team from a positioning point of view. Your Manchester City squad is just, it's childish. It really is childish. And the depth they've got. They signed a left back on Tuesday when we were talking about we were actually talking about them, and they, as we were doing the live show, they announced the left back, and that was like the one area they were saying, they don't really have a backup left back because they sold Zinchenko. Bang, there's your backup left back. So it's so much more important than just a good 11. You gotta have a good squad. And you look at this, as I said, this Manchester City squad, and your sort of centre backs, so your Ruben Dias, John Stones, Nathan Ake, Laporte. They've got so many options there. In the midfield, you've got Gundogan, who's still there, who's remained, Rodri, De Bruyne, Phil Foden, Bernardo Silva, who can play in most places. They then added Calvin Phillips. As I said up front, they've added all those players. They brought in Julian Alvarez, who's a young player, very highly rated. Sergio Gomez is the player that they signed on Tuesday. It's a disgustingly good squad, and Manchester United are just not quite there. So lots of things need to happen with Manchester United. Brent saying we have an actual coach now, so I'm a bit more relaxed. We're getting more technical players, so the football will improve. They might move considered about Walker is getting on. Yeah, look, the nice thing about Jacques Cancelo is I think he can pretty much play in about 10 of the 11 spots on the field. He's an incredibly gifted footballer. But I think that's, again, but talking about an actual coach now, I do think we do have somebody who can improve players. And that's why, I was always a big Pochettino advocate, because I want to see a manager where I've seen players get a lot better. And young players come through and play a lot better. And that's kind of been the issue. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer had some success at United. He had issues, but he had some success. But, and there were some players who improved, but Rashford kind of has taken a couple of steps backwards in the last couple of years. Mason Greenwood was looking good, and then we all saw what happened. But we didn't see too many of the youngsters really step up and take that next level. And I think the biggest issue is you look at the last sort of 7-8 years, how many Manchester United players have arrived at the club and have gotten infinitely better and then moved on, for example. You know, you kind of feel there are very few players who have really progressed, taken the next step, become world class at Manchester United, which is an issue. And I think that we do have the right coach now, or a coach who is more in that sort of mold. The question is, though, is he allowed, can he bring in the right style of players? I mean, for example, Martinez is a very strange signing. I mean, everybody always makes jokes about how short he is, but he is a technically very sound player, a very different type of centre-back to what Manchester United would expect, or any Premier League team would expect to have. So those kind of signings are quite exciting in that because they're not orthodox, you kind of feel that that's what the manager wants. And if you're going to bring in a manager, you give him what he wants. You can't sit there saying, no, but that guy's not going to work. He's going to say, no, for my system, he's going to work. And that's what backing the manager is. It's not bringing in a manager and saying, right, here are the players that we're going to give you. You must just make them work. It's who do you want? What type of player do you want? You go out and you sign them. So that's the whole thing about Manchester United. As I said, it's a lot of rumors. A lot of people are worrying now that it's PR spin and that, you know, there's not actually much happening, but they're trying to sort of deflect attention away from the Glazers because there are massive protests planned for Liverpool next Monday. Happy birthday to me. We're going to get smacked by Liverpool on my birthday, which is going to really suck. But I think we are in a very crucial 2-week period for Manchester United. And I think if you ask a lot of very diehard Manchester United supporters, if you ask them what are your perfect 2 weeks, they'd probably tell you for the Glazers to sell and have a new takeover. And a lot of them will tell you for Ronaldo to leave and to have and when we talk about a reset, a complete reset, new owners, a new squad or a new sort of dynamic within the squad. And maybe it might not come off this season, but you know, a lot of them are hoping that in the long run this will be sort of set us up for success. And Matthew Dixon making a comment saying that the Glazers were great for business because the Blues have achieved a lot. Sort of sums it up, doesn't it? But yeah, so that's the Manchester United sort of update. Which you know, I'm going to try and not make this a Manchester United show. I'm a Manchester United fan, so obviously I know a lot more about the club than I will other clubs. But they are very much the big talking point at the moment. But there is a lot happening in the transfer window. And we're going to go through some of them. Now, the big sort of news I said yesterday was Manchester United, a bit of Casemiro. Apparently, Real Madrid are quite keen to sell. In fact, I was watching them at the highlights of the Madrid match. You know, you've got Chalmini, who made the move during the summer. You've got Camavinga, who's a very talented player. So if you look at the starting lineup this weekend, Casemiro is actually on the bench because they started with Cruz, Chalmini, and Camavinga. There was Modric also started on the bench, came on, and Hazard came on. Casemiro came on. Obviously, Ceballos still stayed there. So I can understand why, despite him being one of the best midfielders in Europe last season, probably one of the best CDMs, that they would look and sit there saying, well, you know what, maybe we actually cash in on Casemiro. Because as I said, if you mention out of bidding in the region of 80 million euros for a 30-year-old player, when you've just brought in Chalmini and Camavinga, you're probably sitting there going, that's probably not a bad idea. So, as a United fan, look, I'm taking Casemiro tomorrow, and I know it's going to be a lot of money, but he is a type of player that would really improve the squad, and that's what the clubs are missing. And the issue is always, you know, the mass transfer window, the massive transfer fees, the massive flipping wages and stuff like that. But in terms of other clubs, as we'll need to say, Wolves have just signed Matheus Nunes for a club record fee. Very keen to see what he's done. It cost him £42.5 million, 23-year-old from Sporting Lisbon. And he's Brazilian, so that whole Samba Boys sort of reputation. So I'm interested to see what... And Wolves signed smart... I mean, we've seen some very, very... I mean, Jota's obviously coming out of the Wolves. I've really enjoyed watching that Wolves project. In fact, at one stage, I was considering even buying a shirt and committing to the whole the Wolves project. I'm probably now looking more at the Newcastle project. You know, if I'm not going to enjoy being a Manchester United supporter, I might as well go find some Saudi money and get involved in there. But yes, they did sign him yesterday. I'm very keen to see what he's about. Being Brazilian means they're often very easy on the out, which is what quite exciting. I've seen that Juventus have just announced the signing of Lina Hertig, who's a Swedish striker. That's for the women's side, which is quite cool to see that, you know, you go and read you go and read like transfer news, and it's now being women's sort of transfer, women's football is now kind of in the same sort of section. So that when you go and you scroll, that's what I'm saying. You know, the big red pop up, and you're sitting there going, well, who's hurting? And then you sort of realize it's for the women's side. It's quite cool to sort of actually start being a bit more informed about that. But yeah, so some other transfer sort of murmurings. The Tottenham's Tanguy Ndombele is set for medical today, apparently. It's supposed to be a loan. They're looking at just less than £1 million loan fee, and the expectation is a option to buy for around 25.3 million. So Spurs will make a loss on the midfielder. A very frustrating player because, you know, I've watched him when he plays well. He's a good footballer. You know, I was making a joke that when he plays well, he's kind of, I mean, he can be Pogba-esque in a way, and it doesn't help that he's French. But, you know, very physical specimen, very good on the ball, you know, very technically sound. But he's very similar to Pogba in terms of there being quite a big attitude problem, which is very frustrating. You know, there's nothing more frustrating than seeing a player full of talent and just wasted because of attitude. And he's definitely not a Antonio Conte type player because he doesn't have the work rate and he's got bad attitude. Brent saying, I think if we get Frankie, that'll change the whole way we play. Takes the ball from centre backs brilliantly and will be much better. Yeah, I think, you know, we've been waiting for a ball playing midfielder for a long time. The alternative is obviously to have more of a genuine CDM from a defensive point of view, and then to have more ball playing centre backs who can progress the ball. Frankie de Jong is obviously the ideal signing. You know, someone who's going to sit in the back of that sort of midfield triangle and at the base of the midfield and just pick up and be able to thread passes to the very good forwards we do have and allow a bit more roaming for the likes of Bruno Fernandes, even in Eriksen if you want to play both. You know, if you were to get, I mean, ideal situation, imagine you were to get Casemiro and Frankie de Jong, for example, and you say, right, Casemiro and Frankie de Jong operating, you know, they'll pivot, for example, one much more ball playing, one much more sort of defensive duties. The other big rumors yesterday is obviously Christian Pulisic is potentially looking to make a move on loan. Manchester United apparently one of the clubs after him. It looks like Hector Bellerin, for example, could be on the way out from Arsenal. Apparently, Udinese are looking at him. He was on loan last season at Real Betis, so very much fallen out of favour at Arsenal. Very much looking to try and offload him. So interesting to see. And one of the big signings, which is kind of sort of going to be quiet, was Bernardo Silva, with everybody expecting Bernardo Silva to have made the move to Barcelona. Apparently, according to, I think it was yesterday Sunday Times, they were talking about the fact that first of all, the player Bernardo Silva himself is thinking about leaving, and apparently PSG are now looking at coming in for him. This is the quote that came from yesterday from Sunday Times football correspondent saying it's an interesting one because Bernardo has been here for before in the last two transfer windows. He has showed signs he has considered going, and City have been open to selling at the right price. Bernardo will go for more than £59 million, but PSG are rivals to City in terms of the Champions League, but Abu Dhabi and Qatar are rivals as countries as well. City have a policy of letting players go if they really want to, and the asking price met. I think this is a go. So, yeah, I think £59 million for Bernardo Silva is very good money. Both in Man City, and I think if you're getting Bernardo Silva for £59, that's a pretty good signing as well. So I'd say that's pretty fairly priced. A very, very good player, but yeah, I mean, a player that Manchester City don't really need. It's a luxury, isn't he? Which is kind of shows you how good Manchester City's transfer window has been for a long time. So big sort of question marks about Aubameyang. Apparently, you know, Barcelona looking to get rid of him. Manchester United have been said to be interested, but Chelsea were very much after him. And we spoke a bit on Tuesday about the fact that Chelsea don't have a striker. You know, they've let Lukaku go. Pulisic could be moving on as well. They don't have a striker, and Aubameyang seems to be one of the major options for Thomas Tuchel. Whether they will pull the trigger or not. Manchester United apparently interested in him, but apparently he doesn't want him to come. Shock and horror. So interesting to see what goes there as Barcelona continue to try and just offload players, because at the moment they still can't register their entire squad. That is what gives Manchester United fans the biggest hope around Frankie de Jong. The fact that, you know, him leaving frees up so many wages. If they could offload the wages that they are owed to Frankie de Jong, then that's provides a lot of financial relief for Barcelona. So the fact that it doesn't matter that Frenkie de Jong doesn't want to actually go, if they sit there, and I don't understand why you want to stay after your club is literally saying, listen, we owe you money, we're busy signing these players, we're not going to pay you money, but we're going to need you to piss off. We're going to need you to get out of here. We need you to leave so we can register all these fancy players we just spent your wages money on. I mean, the man's owned like 17 million pounds, and then you got, Lewandowski and all these players arriving on big wages, on transfer fees, and you're sitting there going, but you can't pay me. And then I must take a wage cut while you add all these big stars. So Barcelona is an absolute disaster of a club at the moment. They really are. But Frenkie de Jong apparently wants to stay. I don't know why. Just come to United. If you instead of being miserable in Barcelona, come be miserable in Manchester United. Come be miserable in Manchester, where the weather's not nearly as good as Barcelona. The city's not as pretty, and we've actually got no real upside. But the fans want you, and the club actually wants you, and they're not going to boo you for not leaving. We wait to see what's going to happen with Frenkie de Jong. Unfortunately, my gut says it's not going to happen. Sean's saying, what's the story with Harry Maguire? Will he leave? He definitely won't leave. I mean, who's going to buy him? Who's going to buy Harry Maguire? For what? I mean, what are you going to get for Harry Maguire? 35 million, 40 million if you're lucky. And who's going to sign him for that kind of money? And you're going to be making a 50% loss of it. Unfortunately, Manchester United have got to get Harry Maguire right. He's not leaving. He's not leaving. And he's not leaving now anyway. And until then, there's rumors now that we're going to play Martinez with Varane against Liverpool, which is not the worst thing with Darwin Núñez not playing, because Liverpool are not going to have a massively physical front three. Darwin Núñez is an out-and-out number 9. He's about 1.87 meters. He's tall. He's quite physical, but he's banned for Monday. So interesting to see what they do. There is talks that Maguire could get dropped, but Maguire's not going to leave this window, for example, and Ten Hag has got to get him right. How they do it, I don't know. You've got to play to his strengths, which is his passing game and his physicality, and you've got to sort of try and protect his weaknesses, which is obviously his pace, and his really poor turning circle. But yeah, so I think Martinez, Varane, Maguire will be your 3 main centre backs, with Lindelof probably your 4th choice, and they've got to try and find a way of getting it right. That's Ten Hag's mission. He's got to try and find a way to get him right. And the biggest thing is you've got to get Maguire playing confidently, because when we signed Maguire, everyone had an issue with the cost, but nobody had an issue with the player himself, because he bossed it less than he did. And let's be honest, as Manchester fans, we were all very chuffed when we signed him. We weren't chuffed at the money. If we had signed him for 45 million pounds, we probably would have been like, there we go, we're moving. But his confidence is just next to nothing at the moment, and as a result, he's making really poor errors. The entire back four is a disaster, as with the goalkeeper. So the entire back five is a bit of a disaster. So you've got to get him playing confidently. You've got to get Varane playing. The problem with Varane is a big fitness issue, and people are sitting there saying that they're not sure he can play week in, week out, which, to Maguire's credit, he does. He doesn't get injured. He plays every week. He often plays the most minutes in the league. So he's a very reliable player from the fitness point of view, even if he's not the player you want to be playing every single week. Brent saying Barcelona need to sell Frankie. If City was smart, they could do a swap for Frankie. Yeah, but I mean, where would they even put him in that midfield? Brent saying he won't stay. I think he did tell Ten Hag he's willing to come. We would not be in for so long. Yeah, I just think that the longer it goes, the more likely it is to stay. And if they do start activating more financial levers, then they might even be able to bloody afford him, which will really, really piss me off. But hopefully that they really need something we need something to really send him over the edge and come to us. Sean saying, can he not go out on loan? He's the bad team in the MU camp. He could go out on loan, but first of all, we need to sell Eric Bailly, as much as people are also there saying he's much better. He's one injury away from being up with another season, for example. So I don't see there's much point in loaning an £80 million player. And again, who's going to take him on those wages? You're not going to get a loan fee from him. Financially, doesn't really make sense for him to go on loan. So he probably will stay. But yeah, so that's pretty much the wrapping up sort of the transfer news of the day. We're going to sort of sit there and wait and see what's going to happen. The big names are Bernardo Silva. What's going to happen there? Aubameyang. What's going to happen there? Frankie de Jong. We're now looking at Casemiro deals for United. We're looking at João Felix bid being rejected by United. But the big news at the moment is what will happen with the Manchester United ownership. We'll be back tomorrow at probably 1 o'clock or 12 o'clock, one of the two. We'll have a schedule tomorrow for what will be, first of all, a bit of a news update on transfers, as well as a look ahead to the weekend. So we'll be looking at all the fixtures. We'll be looking at which players are available. We'll be doing a bit of a preview of the weekend as well. We might also be having a watch along this weekend as we really do try to start to push football. So your support is really appreciated. It's going to take a bit of time for the show to really pick up, but I've got no doubt that in a year's time we'll be sitting with a very cool football news show and a very nice football community. Football Cup coming up, and that's what we're really sort of gearing ourselves towards. Please do smash like on the video and subscribe to the channel as well. For the rugby fans, we'll be live in half an hour for our rugby news show.